Well, thank you, Mike, and good morning, everyone. It is a genuine pleasure to be with you here today, and thank you for inviting me to say a few words, and also thank you for your warm welcome over these last 7 months. When I was asked to take on this brief, I genuinely did not hesitate for a moment, because I knew that I was going to get to work with a world-leading industry, because I know that you have all matched the government's ambition for green growth, and because I knew that there were real opportunities for us to seize. And I can tell you now that I have not been disappointed. Last month, almost a quarter of the new cars that were registered were zero emissions. And last year, the UK had the largest EV market share of any major European economy. These are the results of real ambition, real investment, and real partnership. And I'm grateful to SMMT and the whole automotive industry for their efforts. But I know that the wider context that you face is challenging, complex, and changeable. Economic difficulties and global headwinds have created real challenges. And the debate that we are seeing around Made in Europe shows that economic security is on the minds of legislators now more so than ever. Let's be honest, that conducting international business right now is not easy. And many of you have said that to me directly, and I thank you for the frankness that you have shown. High costs combined with low certainty have hit industries that are resilient on global supply chains, industries like yours. And if that wasn't enough, recent events in the Middle East have compounded this uncertainty, reflected in wholesale energy prices. But as global volatility seems to be the order of the day, some enduring truths have not changed. Truths such as the automotive industry being at the heart of Britain's future growth, or that the biggest priority right now is the government helping people with the cost of living. And finally, our urgent need to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and to ensure that we are more resilient to global shocks. All these truths remain. And let me be clear, all of that leads to a future of electric vehicles. Vehicles which are cheaper to run, cheaper to maintain. EVs bringing household bills down. Less reliance on volatile energy markets. Instead, EVs are powered by an ever greener national grid. And quite simply, EVs are the future of our domestic automotive sector, the heartbeat of our industrial strategy. And thanks to this government and the work of industry, the EV transition is being backed by tens of billions of pounds in public and private investment. So if you leave with one message today, let it be this. While global events often give us pause and do give us cause for reflection, I believe what we see around us only reinforces the case for electric vehicles. It only compels us to move forward with the transition. And that's why this government's commitment to the EV transition remains ironclad. And we're not blind to the fact that it will be you in this room that delivers this transition. Firstly, on the zero-emission vehicle mandate. Is it ambitious? Yes, of course it is. And we as government are committed to giving you the tools you need to make it happen. Today, we learned that industry successfully complied with the 2024 target, using the flexibilities built in to the mandate. And provisional 2025 data also looks promising. Now, this is fantastic news, but we also recognise the challenges that you are facing to maintain that momentum. While the end goal remains clear, we acknowledge the need to listen to you and to be pragmatic. We've committed £7.5 billion to support the transition over the next decade, and we've already legislated to increase and extend the flexibilities of the ZEV mandate, delivering many of the changes that SMMT and its members have called for. And we've committed to publish a review of the mandate early next year, and we are listening, and we're engaging with stakeholders across the industry. But we also need to take decisive action to accelerate demand for electric vehicles. Drivers like EVs. They are cheaper to run, they are smooth, they are quiet, they are responsive to drive, and they are simpler to maintain. But we know that upfront cost remains one of the biggest barriers to adoption, and we're determined to help more hardworking families to make the switch. The £2 billion electric car grant has already made that possible for over 75,000 drivers, with people across the UK enjoying discounts on dozens of new electric car models. Not only is this helping to keep more money in people's pockets, not only is this insulating them from fuel price uncertainty, but it's also creating opportunities for British manufacturing, jobs and growth. And together we'll make sure that it continues to deliver for consumers and businesses. I'm also grateful for the SMMT's support on our Get That Electric Feeling campaign, which many of you may have seen. Through a bold, multi-channel approach, we are putting EVs at the top of people's mind, with clear, practical messaging on cost-saving, range and convenience, which will ultimately help to build confidence and to boost demand. But as EVs become the new normal, Britain's charging infrastructure does also need to keep pace. And thank you to the joint effort that we've seen both from industry in partnership with government. It's meant that the UK now has over 118,000 public chargers, comfortably exceeding the number of petrol pumps. And almost 1 million households in England now have access to their own charger. But we are not stopping there. We've committed hundreds of millions to help deliver this infrastructure, with grants available for local authorities, businesses and homeowners alike. We're also backing innovators to explore the next generation of charging technology and slashing red tape to help new ideas reach the market more quickly. If availability is one side of that coin, then affordability is clearly the other. And that's why we'll publish our review of public charging costs later in the year, ensuring that drivers across the country can benefit from fair and transparent pricing. Now, finally, as has already been mentioned, let me turn to HGVs. We know that the largest and the heaviest vehicles are often the hardest to decarbonise, and government is working with the sector to tackle this head-on. In January, we announced a significant uplift to the plug-in truck grant, and last summer, we launched the depot charging scheme, both of which are helping businesses to make the transition to cleaner fleets. We're also getting ready to publish the zero-emission HGV and coach infrastructure strategy, giving the sector the confidence that it needs to plan and invest for the future. Now, I know that you have a very jam-packed agenda today, so I'll just end with this. Cost of living, energy security, future economic growth, these are the priorities of this government. They matter now more than ever. And make no mistake, the EV transition underpins every single one of them. So whilst I am proud of the progress that government and industry has made, this is not a moment for us to take our foot off the accelerator. The UK can be a global leader in EVs. I truly believe that, but it is not guaranteed. It must continue to be earned through investment, innovation and partnership. This government has taken bold steps to restore stability in the supply chain, to instill confidence in investors, and to give businesses the certainty that they deserve. None of this is going to change. All I ask is that you continue to work with us for growth and to work with us to seize the opportunities that are ahead. I told you that I didn't hesitate for a moment when I was asked to take on this brief, and 7 months later, I feel that more strongly than ever. Because the momentum is real, our ambition is shared, and together, I think we are just getting started. So thank you, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you very much. Minister, thank you for that. And yes, we do have 10 minutes or so for questions, so please fire away. We covered a lot of ground already this morning, haven't we? An eager hand here in the second row from this lady here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, Keir. Ginny Buckley from electrifying.com. Just really interested to hear your comments about your ironclad commitment to the EV transition. So we've just done a piece of research with over 13,000 UK drivers together with the AA. 55% of non-EV drivers told us that pay per mile would put them off switching to an EV. Now, that should be a stat that should worry you. Are you considering that policy? Can you let us know where you are with that?
Thank you. Can I go ahead and
Please
answer?
go for it.
Well, thank you so much for that question. And I think it points to the heart of the problem, which is unless you can show that owning an EV equates to real cost savings for consumers, the transition won't be able to happen at the pace that it needs to. With those proposals that were put forward at the autumn budget, we are still firmly of the view that you can own an EV and access a much better rate of home charging. That gives you access to 3 pence per mile. That's the equivalent of driving from London to Birmingham for £3.50. You combine that with any of those changes, because we do, as we facilitate the EV transition, need to be in a position where we can maintain the strategic road network and continue to meet those priorities for our transport infrastructure. We're going to do that in a way which keeps the cost of EVs in a competitive place. And I want to work through that with industry to make sure that we understand the full implications. But what is really clear from me, from the data that we've seen, is that people are voting with their feet when it comes to the transition. 9 in 10 people who make the switch to an EV don't want to turn back. We have 1 million home chargers in the UK, and we're working to increase access to them. When you do that and you can unlock those cheap savings, that has an enormous cost of living impact. It has an economic security impact as well for consumers not being reliant on volatile fuel prices. So we've got a lot of work to do to communicate that that policy is being worked through, and work closely with the industry to make sure that it meets the needs of consumers. But I think we're in a position now where anyone making the switch to EVs are going to be able to benefit from real cost-saving measures to ease the cost of living, which is one of the key priorities of the government.
Sorry, if I can just come back on a second. I think the reality there is, though, that I think your figures say 1 in 4 drivers can't charge at home. And we know that for them, the cost savings aren't there. It costs more per mile to run an EV if you can't charge at home than it does a petrol car. So what about VAT on charging? When are we going to see a reduction in that to make it fair for those people who don't have the benefit of being able to charge at home?
Well, you're absolutely right, because for all of those things that make an EV more appealing, one of them is that you can access a public charger at an affordable rate. So the government is reviewing the cost of public charging, and we're going to be publishing that later in the year. But we've also seen an enormous increase in the availability of public chargers, 116,000 across the UK. That's more than the number of petrol pumps that we have in the United Kingdom. We're also doing a lot to rationalise the pricing across different public chargers. But you're right to say that it's by unlocking home charging for more people that we're going to make sure that people can make the switch. We've increased the grants that are available for people installing home chargers from around £300 up to £500. That is about half the cost of installing a socket. When you do that, people can unlock the savings, that 3 pence per mile, which is going to make owning an EV not only more comfortable, more quiet, a better experience, but also cheaper to run.
If we can move on to the question for the gentleman in the front row here, please. Thank you.
Am I able to just ask a very, very quick one? It's Erin Baker from Auto Trader. I just very quickly wanted to pick up on the 75,000 electric cars you said, the sales that happened as a result of the electric car grant. How do you know they're down to the electric car grant and not just discounting in the market, the great work that OEMs have done and retailers?
This is obviously a combination of factors. The electric car grant is there to make sure that lots of people can benefit from having over £3,000 off the cost of a new electric vehicle. That includes access to models like the new Nissan Leaf, which of course has an enormous impact in terms of British manufacturing. And we want to make sure that the British automotive sector sits at the heart of the ECG, and that we're facilitating the transition whilst also creating good jobs here in the United Kingdom and stimulating demand for the UK automotive sector. The ECG has helped 75,000 people benefit from discounts that they might not have otherwise been able to, but I am under no illusion of the enormous contribution that the sector has made to discount the cost of electric vehicles to stimulate that market demand. We're now in a position where 1 in 4 new cars that were sold in 2025 were EVs, and that's a testament to the work of stakeholders across this room, the British automotive sector, but the government is standing foursquare behind you and wants to play our part as well in making that happen. So that £2 billion that's in the electric car grant is helping more people make the switch. And that's before we get into the conversation about the used EV market, which I'm sure somebody in the audience has got a question on, which is to follow.
Minister, it's Alex from Wolf Power Club here, the largest energy podcast. Isn't it a bit disingenuous, one of the points just made about petrol stations, as a resident of London, typical London street, 70 cars in the street, 3 charge points in the lampposts. And I'm not expected as a London resident to put up lampposts, but I'm expected to install charge points with no driveways. Surely you can rectify that on both a national and local government level so that you don't have the people of Britain putting up their own street lamps. You can put the chargers into these parked areas of big cities.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and the government's undertaking a lot of work to look at our planning system, to think about how we can rationalise it, cut through red tape, and make it easier for people to access home charging. That's how you unlock those cost savings, which are going to make an enormous benefit to consumers. At the same time, getting the public charging network right is something that we need to accelerate. We're putting £600 million into expanding the network further. That's an extra 100,000 chargers on top of the over 100,000 that we already have. But it's unlocking and increasing the over 1 million home charging points that's really going to make the cost saving for people. And I think actually the events that we've seen in the Middle East have brought home more starkly than ever the fact that British people want to be insulated from volatile shocks in the global oil price. We saw today that the price of a barrel of oil has gone over $100. It's by having access to the national grid, which is increasingly becoming reliant on clean, green energy, that we're going to unlock the cost savings for people, but also provide that economic security and cost of living benefits too. But you're right to say that cutting through planning to make sure that we unlock home charging for more people is an enormous piece of the puzzle.
Okay, if we have time for another one, maybe even 2 questions. So where would we like to go now? Okay, but there's a question over here in the 4th row. This gentleman here, yes. If you'd like to say who you are, please.
Hello, Neil Mansfield from the Press Association. The SMMT want for government to bring forward its review of the ZEV mandate. Will you do that? And if not, why?
So we've committed that the review is going to happen in early 2027, but the work is going to begin on it this year. It's incredibly important. I meet with automotive manufacturers every week in my role as the Minister with responsibility for EVs. I understand how challenging the global picture is. I understand just how hard manufacturers are working to be compliant with the ZEV mandate. I hope you feel like the government is meeting our side of the bargain as well, whether that's the £2 billion in the ECG, making sure that the consumer side is right in terms of the charge point rollout. We want to work really closely with industry to make sure that the ZEV mandate works in terms of our climate targets, but that it also suits the business needs of the automotive manufacturers who are making that transition happen. And that's work that is already taking place over the course of this year.
And a final question. Here we are, over here. Thank you.
Emma Martin from Bosch. Minister, thank you so much for the information and details, and apologies that I'm picking in the same topic.
No.
We are in an oil crisis, as you said, and we are struggling in the transitions, the automotive sector, not only in the UK, but on the global level. Still, with all of this, you still want to increase the fuel duty. And you're still considering the EVAT, where we are actually, you heard from not all of the audience, but some of them, that there is a struggle on actually scalability of the EVs, where you're actually imposing on the consumers the EVAT. I understand all the comments, what you mentioned, but I'm just actually wanted to point out that it's still a challenge and a concern from us as investors in the UK, seeing this is happening. And on the back of this, I would like also to ask, because you said 2 days ago you're listening. And that's why I'm actually asking you, and it's an appel and as well as a question. Is there any way that you can have an early review for the Z mandate? We understand the circumstances of the government and also the commitment for the trajectory, what you already announced. But really, from our perspective, as a supplier, as a manufacturer in the UK, we would like to see an early review of the Z mandate. And I'm really hoping that you will say yes.
We're standing by.
Thank you. Yeah, no pressure. What I would say is that meeting automotive manufacturers, one thing I want to be really clear on is that I am under no illusion that you are meeting the government where we are in terms of the scale of the ambition. I've been really clear that when it comes to the ZEV mandate review, we need to make sure that that takes place to meet the fact that we have to meet our carbon obligations, our desire to make the cost of living easier for working people, but it also needs to make good business sense for the automotive manufacturers who are a foundational part of the UK economy. We need to have that conversation. At the same time, what I want to be cognizant of is that the automotive sector has put billions of pounds worth of investment into making sure that the EV transition can happen. And we saw a lot of reckless irresponsibility from the previous government, chopping and changing, sending unclear, mixed signals about their advocacy for the EV transition, which in turn had a negative impact upon demand. The government is incredibly clear that the EV transition is something that we stand resolutely behind. We want to do that in partnership with the automotive sector to make sure that it makes good business sense for you. The work that we're undertaking through the ECG to back British manufacturers, but a whole host of manufacturers to make sure that we are stimulating that demand is part of that process. But I want to work closely with you. That work on the review needs to begin this year. It is beginning this year. But early 2027, we feel, is the right point to make sure that we can test properly where the pressure points lie in the ZEV mandate and make sure that it continues to work for manufacturers.
Keir, I'm not sure that's exactly the answer they wanted to hear, but thank you very much indeed for taking questions. It's been a great opportunity. Thank you.